Man, we go ahead and jump into one of the more comprehensive conversations in all of college football right now because today we find ourselves talking about the North Texas Mean Green, which was a team that had such an incredible high going 11 and 1 last year, and they were a conference championship game away from going to the college football playoff, which would have been the biggest achievement in the history of North Texas football, at least in modern memory in terms of my lifetime. But now we get into the ugly side of being a G6, and that is being so good that you end up getting absolutely rated in the by these power conference schools in this current era of the NIL and in the transfer portal, and it almost serves as a what if story, right? So imagine if it's back in the pre transfer portal, pre NIL era. Think about how good this North Texas team is. And if it actually stuck together, imagine, the amount of hype that North Texas would get in coming into this season. But instead, they do come in as your number 101st ranked team in college football. So certainly not a bad team by any means. I would say that's roughly a middle of the pack team that I'm projecting going into this season. But man, it's just a lot of turnover that we're going to go ahead and get into in this first look of the North Texas Mean Green. So I hope you guys are excited for it. Make sure you go ahead and hit that like button and hit that subscribe button as well if you do happen to be brand new. As covering all 138 teams, it does take a long time in terms of getting the graphics together and putting in the effort to study each of these teams. It takes a lot. And so now we go ahead and get into the meat of things, and that is all the changes that's happening to this North Texas roster because Eric Morris famously, obviously, did such a good job at North Texas that Oklahoma State ended up needing a new head coach after relieving Mike Gundy of his duties. And so, for the first time in a very long time, we do see a new head man at Oklahoma State, and that was Eric Morris, who previously coached this North Texas football team. And in the process of doing so, obviously taking many of the playmakers that made North Texas what it was last year with him to Oklahoma State this upcoming season. And of course, we cannot have a North Texas conversation without the big three, right? And that's Drew Mestemaker, the starting quarterback, and it was a superstar quarterback last year and was probably one of the best pickups in the transfer portal for Oklahoma State. But then they also grabbed their top running back in Caleb Hawkins, who was a star in his own right. And then their number one receiver in Wyatt Young also obviously leaves to go play at Oklahoma State. So those were star players slash superstar players that right out of the gate are going to be really difficult pieces that you're going to have to replace. And while I think on the offensive side of the ball, I don't think that it's going to be a complete fall off. Obviously, don't think they're going to be leading the FBS in points per game scored. What I'm really more concerned about than anything else is what are things going to look like on the defensive side of the football, right? Because they have to replace their entire defensive line, all of which is going to a power conference school, whether it's like Ethan Day on the inside going to Utah after a 7 sack season from the interior, or a Sadiq Clements on the inside as well, joining Kavion Hudson, another defensive lineman going to play at Oklahoma State. So those two guys are going to play for the Cowboys as well. How about Joshua Pierce on the other edge? Could have been a potential breakout player this year. Well, he ends up going to Cal to join Joshua Poi. So they're going to have to replace their entire defensive line. They do also lose a really good linebacker in Ethan Wazowski, who, hey, no surprises here, goes to Oklahoma State too and had nearly 120 total tackles this last season. So that's going to be a little bit of a question. And then their entire secondary was essentially poached as well. Almost all of their secondary guys also joining Eric Morris in Stillwater, Oklahoma, losing 6 interceptions between Quentin Hammonds and Evan Jackson and Colin Lewis too. But then Patrick Smith Young, who had a good season in his own right, not quite the ball hawk as the other defenders that that we mentioned. But Patrick Smith Young also had 73 tackles from the safety position. So it was more of a box safety and more played in that, I guess, it played as an extra man in the box at times. So that's a lot of production on the defensive side of the ball that they ended up having to, they're going to have to try and find internally because on the flip side of things, you look at what they brought in the transfer portal from a defensive perspective. They brought in Aaron Alexander and they brought in Cedric Roberts, who I think are going to be good ads in the linebacking room. So there actually is a chance that I think the linebackers could be a little bit better than what they had last year, in spite of the loss of Ethan Wazowski, because it's kind of a situation where they get multiple players to try to replace production of one, and you might get 1.5 times what Ethan Wazowski brought to you, right? If that makes any sense. So the linebackers actually could be a touch better. Special teams actually could be in a good spot this year. They brought in Dominic DeFreitas as well, who transfers from Appalachian State. He was an all-conference kicker over in the Sun Belt last year for the Mountaineers. So the special teams actually could be all right into good. The linebackers actually could be at least a push or better, but definitely am extremely worried about who is going to be able to develop a pass rush on the defensive side of the ball, as well as things going on in the secondary, having some issues there as well. So knowing that you might have some issues on both your defensive trenches as well as having some issues in your defensive secondary, or at least maybe not issues, but questions that need to be filled between now and when August rolls around. That could be a recipe for the North Texas defense taking a step back and asking your offense to listen. They put up 45 points and they were able to comfortably win games. It might be a no quit kidding. We may need you to put up 35 to 40 points if we want to win some games outside of some safe wins that I do have for this team, which I'll touch on in a minute. Now, to be fair to this North Texas team, because I don't think it's all doom and gloom. Obviously, I don't think that the quarterback and running back production is not going to be in the same spot, but they did bring in some experienced pieces in the backfield. Trayvon Jackson transfers in from UCF. He had 2,200 total yards and 13 touchdowns, was a primary starter for the UCF Knights last season. I think that was a solid ag in terms of you're not going to replace Drew Messamaker. That guy is, that's a once in every 10 to 15 years in the G6 ranks. So losing Drew Messamaker, that's going to really hurt. But Javon Jackson means it's not completely hopeless at the quarterback position. I think he's going to be fine. I'm also really fascinated by Nick Osha as well, who transfers in from Indiana State, over 700 total yards and 9 touchdowns last season. So obviously not Caleb Hawkins either, but there is a really fascinating player at the running back position that I think could be playing meaningful reps at tailback for you this fall. And then a few good weapons that were brought in through transfer portal to help out Javon Jackson, whether it's Grayson O'Bara from Dartmouth, who put up a nice productive year, or TJ Chunkwara, who transfers from Black Hills State, not an FCS school even, but 1,100 yards and 16 touchdowns. That's a kid that absolutely can play. And there's not as much of a scab in skill position guys as you would see in offensive linemen. So that's, I think TJ is someone that's going to be a really intriguing name to watch as we progress through the spring and into the summertime as well. But none of those guys excite me as much as Breck Long, who I think could be the vocal point of this offense from a passing game perspective. He's a tight end that comes in from South Alabama, and he has that real breakout potential as well. So I don't think it's going to be a great offense. I think that there's pieces in play where the offense could maybe be good. Don't expect them to score 45 points a game by any means. So Neil Brown is going to have his work cut out for him to kind of build things from complete scratch and try to figure out what does North Texas become under the Neil Brown tutelage, and trying to at least try to take some momentum towards the back end of Eric Morris's tenure and bring them in and try to segue that into becoming a more consistent program moving forward. But definitely am concerned about the defensive side of the ball in particular. I think that gives a couple of red flags for me, which is why, as I'll go ahead and get into the schedule here in a little bit, why I obviously don't have North Texas having the same level of success as they did have over the course of last fall. So let's go ahead and jump into that part of things and talk about the North Texas schedule. And there's a few games in here where, or first and foremost, I think it would be a stretch to say that I think they should win. The Indiana game on the road. I mean that's a tough ask. Beating the defending champion, Kirk Cignetti is arguably one of the best coaches in the game right now. So that's a big ask for Neil Brown making his debut as the North Texas head coach as well. But a couple of other games that do concern me. UNLV at home. I think UNLV not only can win the Mountain West, but I think there is an outside shot for the Rebels to win the Mountain West, and I just trust Dan Mullen more than Neil Brown at this time. Going on the road against Navy, Navy has been a really good football team the last couple of years. I think Navy is going to be a tough ass to beat. And then same for UTSA, which they have been almost unstoppable in the Alamo Dome. I expect that to continue this year. Plus Tulane. Don't know if I love Will Hall as the hire for Tulane, but there's still a lot of talent in New Orleans, and frankly, I mean, I trust their program more holistically than North Texas right now, whereas the Mean Green have been more of a is that a flash in the pan like type of program, or can we expect them to be a little bit more of a more consistent program moving forward? And I don't think that it's going to be a complete collapse by any means. I think they're going to get even worst case 4 wins. I like their chances against Houston Christian. Charlotte might as well be an FCS team at this point. We just got to keep it the bean. That's a team that I had almost at the very bottom of the FBS. So having them at home, I think that's going to be a safe win for the Mean Green. Rice is they got rated a little bit into transfer portal as well. So I do love North Texas's chance there as well. And then UAB, where Alex Mortensen is looking to kind of undo the damage that Trent Dilfer done over the last couple of years. So it's going to be a little bit of a rebuilding process out there in Montgomery, Alabama. But we there's some safe wins here, and then there's a couple of other games where I think are certainly winnable. Texas State on the road, I think North Texas and Texas State. That's going to be a really high octane shootout type of performance. That's me putting a little bit more faith in GJ Kinn. Plus, that game is happening in San Marcos, so I am leaning towards the Bobcats to win that one. Tulsa looks to be a much improved team as well under Trey Lamb, which we went a little bit out of order to talk about Tulsa because I saw some Tulsa slander in the YouTube comments, but I think Tulsa is a slightly better team than North Texas. But then FAU at home, I think that's certainly a game there. I would lean towards the Mean Green. So a path that exists for the Mean Green to at least get back into bowl season, but definitely taking a step back from last year, where ultimately I will have them as a 5-7 football team because I think that defense is really going to hurt them big time unless there is significant development inside the building between now and in the month of August. So that's where I'm at with North Texas right now, them being my 101st ranked team in college football. But definitely let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. Am I being too harsh on the Mean Green? Do you think I actually should be a little bit lower on them? Certainly let me know down in the comment section. But in the meantime, hopefully you guys enjoyed this content of covering all 138 teams from a first look 50,000 foot perspective. If you have, make sure you hit that like button as well as hit the subscribe button because that does genuinely help me out big time. But with that being said, this is Jake from College Football Red Zone signing off. Seeing you guys next time. I hope you go out there and take it easy and take care, everybody.